Welcome back to Author Talk with SJC.
All right, we are back with Alexander Verbeek-van Toren. How did I do?
It's good enough.
Very glad to see you again. And now we get to do the fun stuff, talk about the book with a little bit of spoilers. Yeah, so as I mentioned before, I am 48% done, so I can't do all the spoilers, but I can do some of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so corruption. We have Revan, we have Gave,
Yeah.
we have, is it Arana?
Arana. Yeah.
Arana. So just tell me anything you want to about these characters, first off.
I think that what I'm going to do then is that I'm going to talk about none of those three characters, and I'm going to talk about the fourth one you didn't mention. And that is one of the very early casualties in the book. I'm talking about Wylan.
Island.
So Wylan is one of the first other crystal to die. And why I want to talk about him is because basically he wormed himself into the novel more and more and more thanks to the help of test readers. Originally, Wylan was just a random character, not even a friend from Revan. He did not have a boyfriend. He was just a random character who died, and that signaled, hey, stuff's about to get real. But test readers came back and said, there's a person dying and I'm not feeling anything. I want to feel more. Okay, so I made them vague friends in the past. No, that's not good enough. I want to feel more. Okay, so I'm going to give him a boyfriend who he meets once. No, I want to get my heart broken. Okay, then he has a broken heart now and he's very angry at Ravan and they used to be friends. Are you happy now? So, if you're reading that bit and your heart is broken at any time, you can blame my test readers for that. That was not my original vision. But I'm very glad with the way it turned out. Don't get me wrong, but you have test readers to blame.
Well, that is good to know. I'm sensing the theme of you wanted it mild, a little milder, and then like you kept getting further and further into, okay, I need an apocalypse now. I need a character we love to die. I need, like
Yeah.
yeah, that's interesting. It reminds me of when I was in art class in like seventh grade and I had this stippling. It was very as a pen like dot drawing basically. And as I did it, I thought I was done, and I started to turn it in, and my teacher was like, "No, I need more contrast. You need darker places and lighter places. It really needs to contrast each other." And that really started in my mind of, oh, I need a little bit of drama in fiction. I need to make sure that I have enough structure and enough. You don't want heartbreak, but then it's kind of what people expect in a story, I guess,
I
in certain
guess,
ways.
yes. And like the funny thing when that happened is that when I reread Violence Dead Scene now, I mean, now I feel the emotions as well. Whereas originally he was just, I think the trope term is a red shirt. And he just became a major character who died posthumously. Now, who died posthumously? That's not the right word. Sorry. Who became major after his death. That's better.
Oh, sure. Oh, one thing that I thought was cool. First of all, my crystals, if I had crystals, we wouldn't have to worry because it just says magical, and that's all you
Yeah,
need to know. I
very
thought
good.
about that today when I was like choosing my outfit. I was like, magical. That's what it means. All the crystals right here. So, but okay, what I thought was interesting is the choices of what kinds of crystals there are. So if I get it
Yeah.
right, we have force, skill, art, the center crystal, and
Calm.
the other one.
Calm. I think calm. Yeah,
Calm.
force, skill, art, calm, center.
So tell me about how those developed because I that was such an interesting combination.
It's I think most of it came naturally. So I'm trying to dig at why I made those choices. And I think most of the choices were made with the idea of I want this to be as intuitive as possible. Because I'm going to have to explain to you, to the reader, hey, five crystals, all of them have different functions. And I don't want you to get lost. Thankfully, most of the functions you don't need to know. You just need to know the skill crystal and the center crystal. Those are the only ones who really play a big role, of course. But I think, and I look really stupid for not knowing this right off the top of my head. But like the center crystal, of course, it is in the middle, so it's superior over all the other ones. So it decides your role. So because it's in the middle, I think, okay, that's easy to remember. Now we go to the right hand. The right hand is something we use. Well, most people are righties, as am I. They use their right hand mostly. So because you use your right hand mostly, that is the hand you can use for being very skilled, being very capable, whereas the left one is more for art, more for other things. I think that was most of my thought process behind it. I can't
Okay.
say I stuck to that 100%, but I wanted it to be as intuitive as possible.
It's interesting. As I was trying to explain the book to my partner, I said, it makes me think of uh the story Divergent as far as like how they have their factions, and I said, but I feel like this one's even more interesting just because it's like the divisions are in more interesting because it, like art skill, I don't know, it was just different, and it just made me consider books like this and divisions like that always make me consider, obviously which crystal would light up for me, and
Yeah,
would I be other crystalled? Would I likely have more than one? That would make sense, just thinking about my current life. And
right.
so as I read, I like to find those little descriptions here and there of what the crystals mean. And I like that you're good at weaving it into the story and the conversation rather than having like 3 pages of here's how the crystals work. Like you're able to kind of weave it in, and that's really cool.
And I think, like, I basically just use a little hack called emotions. Because the story would not work if Revan wasn't other crystalled. Because if Revan wasn't other crystalled, he would not care as much about the crystal system. And if he wouldn't care as much about the crystal system, it would just be a dry spitting of facts, and I would lose you.
Right.
I use the same thing for all the other tricks. Revan has a lot of emotions about the magic not working because he can't go home, the place where he feels safe. And because he feels so emotional, I get to spew pages and pages of info dump at you while still making you feel like you are not being info dumped on because Revan is emotional about I can't go home. I can't go home to the place where I feel safe. The same thing with the whole Coden system I have going on throughout the novel. Revan has feelings for his best friend, and that makes it complicated. That makes it difficult for him, so he can think about the Coden system all he wants, and it doesn't feel forced. Every time I go back to world building, I mix it together with emotion to make sure that you get the point in an interesting manner, because otherwise I am just gonna write an encyclopedia about a world you don't know.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Is that something that you kind of gathered on your own, or did you get tips on that from like the writing podcast or anything like that?
Honestly, I have internalized this for so long that I don't remember quite well where it came from. But
Sure.
corruption, like I had written two fantasy novels before that, and I really like novels with weird worlds. I really like reading fantasy. Like George R. R. Martin is also fine, but I love the Stormlight Archive more. I love a story that takes place on a big weird world where everything's different. And I noticed that I have a much easier time keeping track of everything if there are emotions paired with it. And also part of it is like I am a psychologist. I know how emotions work. I know how to use them to basically hack your brain.
Right. Have you seen the movies Inside Out and Inside Out 2?
I have, yeah, I've seen both of them. Inside Out is no, is a movie I can never make it through dry-eyed.
Hmm.
Inside Out 2 works very well for couple people. I am not among them, but I still really appreciate what it's trying to do.
Yeah, I always go back to that when I start talking emotions. It's just imagine them outside of you, but also in your head. And how does that work, you know? Um,
Yeah.
you mentioned the Stormlight Archive. That's really funny because I just started reading The Way of Kings.
Ah,
So, yeah, I definitely appreciate Brandon Sanderson. I read Elantris, the Mistborn series. I think I read something else by him. Absolutely phenomenal. I love his world building and things like that. So I'm glad that you take a little inspiration from that.
I take inspiration from the Stormlight Archive in many different ways. I have even provided therapy based on the third Stormlight Archive novel
Wow.
once. I'm not going to give you any details on that,
Oh,
but
sure.
rest assured, it's a good story, and I can tell you that in person or when the camera is off. But yeah, the Stormlight Archive is my favorite series of novels, and the third one I recommend the most of all because it's amazing. So keep reading, please.
I absolutely will. I appreciate that encouragement. I have a friend at work who I told him I had started reading Dawn Shard, and I didn't realize it was like a novel in the middle of the series.
Yeah,
And so he said, "Have you read The Way of Kings?" And I was like, "No." So I started listening to the audiobook, and then yesterday he brought me the book so that I could see the maps and illustrations and everything. So, but that's really good to know. I love when authors just have that intuitive way of bringing the emotions in very smoothly and very naturally, but also in a way that drives the story forward and helps you understand that world, in just powerful ways.
yeah, and it wouldn't have worked if Revan was not a victim of that. That is actually a lesson I did learn. That's coming back to me now. That's a lesson I did learn with the Tidally Luck novel I mentioned in the first video. Originally, this is another book where gayness plays a big role that I wrote while I thought I was straight. So, another one of those big signs. Originally, I had this interesting gimmick where gay people would not get discriminated on the dark side of the world, but they would get discriminated on the light side of the world, which pretty interesting. It doesn't work if your main character is straight.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
At that point, you have to tie it in, which is why I tried it in 2014, failed, tried again in 2015, and then I was like, okay, the original protagonist was a straight white male. Now it's going to be a lesbian assassin, which far better.
That's
Everything gets
fun.
better with lesbians, I guess.
I love the contrast. Straight white male, lesbian assassin. There you
Yeah,
go.
let's go all the way the other way. And I have a story that works now, and I hope to sell it maybe one day. Uh, we'll see.
I want to read that one. That's fun. That's
If I
awesome.
get around to translating it, I'll let you know.
Well, I really like how you use natural elements in your stories. Like you talked about the t tidally locked. Is that how I said?
Yeah, tidally
Tidally
locked
locked. Yeah.
left. Yeah,
Right. Um, and so you have that situation, and then this situation, which I know is not accurate, but imagine all of this is actually lava, not water with lava around it.
yeah.
Um, but just having AI interpretation, it did its best. But skyscraper on an island surrounded by lava, and the only way to get there is through the gates and through the magic system of that world.
And yeah, most of that is just me. The reason why it's a world filled with lava and islands is because I needed to be sure that my characters could only get around using magic portals and no other way. If it was just water, it would be like, oh gosh, diggity darn it, the magic isn't working. Let's go for a swim, and we have no problem whatsoever. I wanted to go all the way there. You have to use the magic portal, and you have no other choice. And most of the world building, it's I have one or two big ideas, and the rest is just me filling in the blanks.
Hmm.
If you've read about Samelon, you've read about the flow, and how Samelon used to somehow manipulate the world into what it is like now. All of that is filling in the blanks because hey, you have a world with skyscrapers and lava and islands. How did they get there? Well, I used a little Mistborn trick. I just essentially said originally it was the world was different, but then some god manipulated it, and now it's like now.
Yeah, that was something that was fascinating to me is just how you slowly weave in the drama with Semelon and how different people believe different things about him and what is the truth. You know, we don't know the truth yet. That's kind of the mystery in the story. And, Gave having obviously a very different viewpoint, but being careful about what he says, knowing he's the minority in that case. I definitely relate to that, with different places I've been that had a certain religion as the majority or a certain mindset, and having to kind of walk on eggshells a little bit just to make sure I don't completely offend everyone at one time, and so that was really interesting. And I just started or I just finished the Black Witch Chronicles, which was a story that by the end was very focused on the damage of having one religion that strictly taught a certain thing and expected everyone else to abide by it, and then having like no give, and how that can be damaging, psychologically. And then having other perspectives come in. And so the main character is like of that original mindset and then starts meeting people and understanding different circumstances and starting to say, oh, maybe there's some give to what's in my head right now.
And me and Gava having that discussion about the nature of Samalan and thinking so differently compared to other people, it's actually just another hack. Because by contrasting this, I can talk about Samalan, and now it becomes interesting because it's the source of the conflict. I could not talk about Samalan in that way unless I had Gave believe something else compared to the rest. And it also really neatly ties it into the central theme of the book, which is essentially it's about not belonging. Revan doesn't belong because he's other crystalled, and Gave doesn't belong because he's from a different island. He has different beliefs when it comes to Samalan. And you'll find as you keep reading, I'm not going to try and spoil you too much. Arana also has a reason for why she doesn't belong. Javik has one, Wylan has one. Basically, almost everyone on whom the spotlight is at some point, has a reason for feeling like they don't belong, excepting one person, and you'll find out what I mean by that.
Interesting. Okay, I'm ready to read more now.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can tell Arana right now is there's a reason she didn't just jump in the boat with her father and automatically, like, she's obviously chrysalis, and I also love that word, like just bringing in a new word. She's chrysalis, but she didn't just say, "Oh, I'm never going to talk to you again." She just keeps looking at him. She keeps, there. I'm like, yeah, there's something going on. There's definitely something going on.
absolutely. There is absolutely 100% something going on there, and you'll find what it is quite quickly, maybe not, but you'll find out what it is eventually. And if you read that part, think about how I used emotions to really weave in the narrative, because thanks to Arana revealing that, I can show you something else about the world. I'm also a little, bummed is maybe not the right word, but I'm also a little bummed you haven't read the climax yet, because I am very, very proud of the climax, and it's
You can talk
something
about it. That's fine. I'll take spoilers.
okay.
We just don't, yeah.
Okay. So essentially, I'm gonna mildly spoil you, but this is usually the kind of spoiler that gets people to keep reading. Revan eventually manages to beat the antagonist by coming out of the closet.
Oh,
Essentially, essentially.
interesting.
And it's a very, very powerful scene that I remember writing it in 2020 and being like, oh, wow, this is good. This is nice. This came out pretty continuity. Well, lovely. And I remember rereading it a couple months later for the first edits and being completely wrecked by it. It's weird to get emotional over your own work. I was not expecting to get emotional over the first draft, but I can tell you that scene, very little is changed there. But you'll find out soon enough what I mean by that. Hopefully it'll get you as much as it got me. If not, that's also fine. But that's something for you to look forward to.
I'm very looking forward to that. Yeah. I just to think of when we think of coming out, usually we think of drama and pain and struggle and relationships breaking down and and so to think of it as the power or the thing that caused good change, that's I like that. That's really cool.
And I think it works so well for me because throughout the novel, that will be the first time Revan voluntarily comes out.
Mhm.
Because throughout the novel, I mean, his parents and sister already know, but nobody else does. Arana finds out, but it was an accident. She walks in on him when he's reattaching the tape. Sorry if I'm gonna mildly spoil you, but Gava finds out. You already know that, or
I think so. Yeah.
Gava finds out because Revan can suddenly make gates, and Gava concludes, hey, he must be other crystal as well. Eventually, somebody else finds out, but that person hears it from someone else in, let's in a way that is not entirely okay, but there are some but the circumstances allow for it.
Okay.
All throughout the novel, he never tells anyone that he himself is other crystalled. Everyone else finds out through some other means
Okay.
until that climax. That's the first time he actually comes out, and that's why it ties in very well with him accepting himself. For the first time, he is saying, hey, I am other crystalled, and that's how I'm going to beat you. And it's a full embrace of who he is because throughout the novel, Revan is not happy about being other crystalled for most of the time because he keeps hearing he's lazy, other crystal people should die, and well, just like how in real life we have internalized homophobia and biphobia and transphobia, he has internalized crystal phobia, essentially.
Mm.
And I'm not going to say that he's going to entirely detox from that. If I ever
Sure.
write a sequel, I do have some plans. I might carry on with that. But he does have a lot of that internalized phobia. And at least at the end, that's for him the moment, hey, this is who I am, and I'm not, and I'm going to try and be okay with that.
I am very happy to just know there's a novel out there that has that mindset and pulls that in as a power in the end. That's awesome.
Absolutely. And there's a line near the end of the novel. It takes place before the yeah. I can only talk about this. I have to spoil you now. Sorry, I
Okay.
have to do that. It's about Wylan and Javik. Throughout the novel, Wylan and Javik, Wylan dies pretty early on. Revan is not able to make it to the service. Javik is very bitter about that. And eventually Javik does come around. And near the end, it is revealed that Wylan and Javik, despite starting as codons and then getting into a full-blown relationship, they never actually had sex.
Oh, wow.
They never actually had sex, and that is a small way and something I hope to do in the sequel of me starting to take down the codon system that I built up in the story. The codon system essentially just came from, well, societal commentary on how, well, Americans in the South, but also other places, all their sex education is abstinence. And I wanted to swing the pendulum in the other direction because sex education abstinence, it does not work. Telling a teen you shouldn't do this leads to the teen doing it. So I swung the pendulum in the other direction, but I also wanted to criticize this a little, and I might be doing that in the next novel more. And so Javik eventually admits to Revan that he's never actually had sex with Wylan. Wylan just offered to be his Coden so that Javik would not be bothered about it, would not be nobody would keep asking Javik if he wanted to Coden because Javik wasn't ready. And Wylan even offers to make noises in the night so that people think they're having sex. It's all fine. And then Javik says says the line, and I think it's a beautiful line, and it's very unfortunate if you take it out of context. He gave up sex just to be with me. What else could I do but fall in love with him?
Hmm.
It's a line that within the world and within the characters, it makes perfect sense. But when I wrote it, I was like, whoops. And then I thought, no, but it works.
Mm.
It works for what I'm trying to say here. And I will, and well, if I ever write the sequel, I will continue on that theme because even if you swing the other way, the pendulum in the other direction, it's still not going to work for some kids because some people are asexual, and unfortunately, this one cannot focus on that too much. I will do that I will fix it in the next novel. But some people aren't ready to have sex when they're 16. Some people aren't ready
Mhm.
to have sex when they're 20, and to have societal pressure to have sex is also bad.
Yeah, that's interesting because I had been thinking about the coding system and I was like, what if that was how we treated people? Because I obviously come from a place where abstinence was the only thing. Like we didn't, I have friends who say, oh, I learned that in school. And I'm like, I didn't, like there was no sex education or anything like that. And I thought, well, what if we had the code-in system? And then it's like, okay, you still have rules around it. Like this is the only person you're supposed to be with, but you have that like outlet, I guess, until you're ready. But I also see what you mean about, yeah, but it could swing the other way, and all of a sudden it's too much pressure. So that's a really interesting concept.
And I mean, it's not just where you are from. There are lots of places that unfortunately do have an abstinence-only education. And I mean, I did get sex education here in the Netherlands. We are a bit more liberal about it, although we also have conservative voices over here. So yeah, that was just, and I think with the coding system, like I'm trying to sort of imply it, but if you just now randomly start giving 16-year-olds codons with whom they can sleep with together all the time, that's going to go wrong. I think, but I think sex education shouldn't start when you're 16. It should start way earlier, adjusted for age. I'm not saying you should talk to 3-year-olds about being top or bottom. That's
Yeah.
weird. Don't do that. But it's always good to be open and honest. And the way I envision the coding system within the world is that it's not the first thing. No, you get a lot of sex education before that. And when you're 16, it's a show of faith. You are given a code and you are no, you're not given a code and you are expected to choose a code and you are expected to treat them respectfully and things like, and this was also a way for me to immediately hijack all the negatives that came up to me because I don't want anyone to get raped, for example. I
Mm.
do not want that at all. So that's why you get all the sex education beforehand so that, when you have sex, it's still consensual. Well, in that way, society is still going to expect you to have sex, which is also not always okay,
Mm.
but it's a different way, in a different way.
Right. It gives you just a completely opposite perspective just to see how that would turn out. When you first started writing the concept, was it something that you knew you would combat later on, or was it kind of develop along the way? You're like, okay, now I need to kind of bring the pendulum to the center.
Basically, the moment I thought it up, I realized it would have holes. And I
Mm.
am a firm believer of when you're writing different systems, when you're role building, don't go for perfection. Perfection is boring. And also, your system, whatever you're building, it won't be perfect anyway.
Mm.
So I
Okay.
immediately knew it had holes, and I tried to patch the easy ones a little bit by making sure rape wouldn't happen. But there are
Mm.
always going to be holes left. But I also knew I wouldn't be able to tackle them in this novel because in this novel I have the crystal system that I have to take down. Revan is with Kava and he's happy, happy, joy, joy about the whole Coden system. It works for him. That's brilliant. Um, But I knew there would be holes right away, and I also knew I would not be able to talk about them sufficiently in the first book. In the first book, it's just a different, interesting system. It's never meant to be perfect, and I hope I get to show you how imperfect it is as well.
Interesting. Yeah, and even if there was no combat to it, it's you have a system that a society has chosen and all of them are going to be imperfect. So I think it still works even without a further explanation.
Yeah,
Um, I sorry for looking down. I was looking at my highlights from the book
no
and
worries.
I wanted to make sure I had them ready. Um, I actually have one highlight that literally just says Coden. Like apparently I was just interested in the concept as a whole. Um, but I thought it was interesting, like little things that you did here and there, like uh, it says practical, simple clothing for the people with a lit up skill crystal, and wealthy looking clothing that was hard to miss for those students that had a lit up central crystal.
Yeah,
So, just with the idea of wardrobe, you were able to convey, oh, I know what the crystal or the central crystal means now. And I thought that was really cool.
thanks.
Um, Yeah, yeah. And then the flow, like when you mentioned the flow, I was like, okay, so this is what everybody's focused on. The flow couldn't leave you. The flow knew everything about everyone, right? Um, and then it's like, wait, right? Doesn't it? Immediately you have that little bit of doubt. First time the flow is mentioned. And so that really gets me curious, like, okay, wait, what do they actually believe and how is that breaking down or how is that supported, in the story? Um, and even Mrs. Dahina avoided the word flow, very clearly sidestepping any religious connotations or fears. I was like, okay, so they're very careful with it. It's not something they're just going to use flippantly. Um, yeah. And then at first, when you were talking gates, and that was like the main thing they did with magic, I was like, that's weird because it seems like such a niche thing, like such a like specific thing to be focused on. And then you start revealing, oh, as they're going, I think down the elevator or something, he's like, oh, it's surrounded by lava. Yeah. And he's like, fine with it. Like that's normal. I was like, oh, wait a minute. Okay. And then later it's uh the only way to get home is through a gate. I'm like, okay, that makes sense now. The only way to travel, the only way to get anywhere. And then like for them to talk about Semelon in the beginning, you're thinking, oh, this is like the hero of the past or whatever. And then all of a sudden, wait, no, he made the lava? He calls, wait. So now I'm like, okay, now I want to know. I'm interested in the future conversations about it
Yeah.
because now I'm conflicted. I'm like, wait, what should I believe? Um, but yeah, that was just a few of the highlights from the beginning, but um,
Yeah,
I have a lot more, but I don't want to take over.
the first chapter, and particularly the first two chapters, are were a bit difficult. Well, let's just say very difficult to get right, because I'm a firm believer of telling you everything that is weird about the world as upfront and as early as possible. I don't want you, like for example, Revan and Gave. I don't want you to read 100 pages about them and then find out they've been having sex all along. That would be
Sure.
weird and different. I want to get your expectations right. And that means getting every puzzle piece in the exact right place so that I can tell you everything up front, or I can tell you, hey, this is a thing and we're going to talk about that later, but I don't have room for it right now. And I had to really get the puzzle pieces right there. Thankfully, I had a lot of test readers to help me out with that. Because, if I want to tell you everything up front, but I also don't want to lose you. And
Mhm.
again, I use a lot of emotion there to really get all the information across. But it's still a difficult balance to strike. And I do think I've struck it. Um, but it is difficult, and it cost me a couple drafts. And it's actually chapter one was very difficult. Chapter two also needed a lot of rewrites before I really got it right, because I needed to expand a little more on the crystals, on the code and thing, on the flow, on Samalan. And as you read chapter 2, you'll find that with all of them, once again, I go back to emotion.
Hmm. Well, I think you have built a beautiful world. I love that you focus on emotion and you recognize if we can't handle or be non-judgmental about our own emotions, that's where our drama starts. That's where we start to break down. And um, I appreciate the type of writing that you're doing, and I love hearing the backstory too. Um, I just want to shout out one more time to Bill Tracy or William C. Tracy and say thank you for, you know, just being willing to reach out to authors and publish, stories with the queer characters and you know, that are just well written. Um, and Alexander, I just want to say thank you for, first of all, your work in child psychology and also focusing on gender dysphoria, and also bringing your life experience into your stories, but not just yours, but an understanding of the world and um, the intricacies of that emotion. And yeah, I hope everyone who is watching is looking forward to reading or has already read Corruption. And I will definitely be looking forward to finishing my 52% that I have left and also going to see what you do next.
Let me know when you have finished it and what you thought about the climax. And and also you are very welcome.
I certainly look forward to it. And yeah, I hopefully will talk to you again on here soon.
That would be lovely.
Thank you, Alexander. Have a great day.
You as well.